Hello my friends, welcome to another episode of Chronicon. My name is Wilfred. Some of you have requested me to do a video on mastery for this game. I'd love to do that for you guys. So this is a guide on the mastery. And the mastery is in fact like a paragon system in D3, but in a much more in-depth kind of like manner, and you can use it to customize the build that you have as well. So it's really rich, and it's very rewarding for you to do end-game content because the mastery does make a difference to your character and your build, the way that you play as well. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game. By the way, the end game and the mastery is one that is very well designed. Now, so without further ado, let's just introduce to you what the mastery is like. But before I get there, just a recap. Every class in Chronicon will have 4 different kind of trees, or at least 4 I've seen so far. This is a Templar, so I could be, say, a Vengeance Templar, or I can be a Wrath, or I can be Conviction, which is a Libet Fire, a bit of like a Redemption, which is like a Holy kind of like a Templar, and you could actually have a mix of both as well. So right now, I built my Templar as a mix between the Redemption as well as Conviction as well. 22 and 70 kind of split to it to make my build kind of interesting, high mobility or all. So kind of you can build anything you want to do with your Templar. You can even do like a mix between like 3 different kind of trees if so you wish to. Don't know how it's going to work out, but there's one option there as well. Now, so from level 1 to 100 is where you focus on your character development, your different kind of tree. You can try out whatever. There's no penalty for you to switch to any build and so on and so forth. You can do that. But at the end game, as you get experience from completing objective or killing monsters, you get XP that can be converted into mastery point, very much like the Diablo 3's Paragon system as well. I think it's a little bit closer to, say, the Omega system back in the Marvel Heroes, because it's a lot more variety to it. So now mastery looks something like this. It looks kind of like complex. It is in a way complex, but I'm going to break it down for you in a way that you can sort of like absorb and think about how to put in a strategy around building your character with the mastery in mind. So this is really for endgame after you completed level 100. Now, if you look at the overview of it, right, there are 2 categories of masteries. One is specific to your build. So for example, I am a Redemption, so you have the Redemption mastery. You can have a Conviction mastery as well. You can have like a Wrath mastery and Vengeance mastery. So those usually go alongside with your build. It helps your build by and large. But there are also other options to make your character strong in a way whereby it's beyond the build that it is. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit. And there's also class mastery 1, 2, and 3 as well. And class mastery is something that you can also put in points until you get the end goal of this, whatever you want to do, whether you want to buff your certain skill, or you can have other options as well. You want to do a sword skill damage, shield skill damage, or a mix of sword and shield, or you want to do magic damage as well. So it is really depending on the build that you're having, or what kind of power that you use, or skills that you use that will benefit from it. But this is one of the main reason why you put in mastery until you get somewhere. And in order to unlock this guy, you need to have all these 3 to be 65. 65 is the minimum to fulfill until you can unlock this one. So there are certain requirements, like for example, before you can invest into this node, you have to have 3 points in total, and after that you must have 10 points in total, whatever, in order to unlock the next one, and so on and so forth. Now, each node itself has many options. So, give you an example, looking at Paladins, Templars, Redemption Templar, the first node is Holy Damage. I pick Holy Damage because mine is a Holy kind of like Templar. But you could have things like Thorns. If you don't do a Thorn, like if you play D3 Crusader, Invoker kind of build, Thorns, right? So you want to do Thorns. All you want to do is like Companion Health, Companion Damage, or do Rich, the area that is radius kind of thing. So again, it really depends on what you want to do with the build. But because I'm a Holy Templar, so Holy Damage is what I want to put 20 points to it to get 40% Holy Damage. So that's one example. And each one of them will have their own build as well. Some of them are kind of build defining, so you can either go for Expulsion or trigger another passive or trigger another passive. So it depends on what is a build, what kind of proc that you want to increase, and you want to build your procs around that, build your character around that proc. You can do that too. Some of them is just 1 point to it, and more like a keystone in Path of Exile, you get me? So it is kind of build defining, and you can't have everything. So like for example, I can have like increased evasion when Grace is being active. Grace is one of the passive that sometimes trigger when you are being attacked or so on. And or you can have like the Grace will restore mana, or Thorn now considered as holy damage. So once Thorn is considered as holy damage, then you can have the scale up the holy damage, and your Thorn become more powerful. So yet another kind of like decision to make, and there are many of them. Each one of them will have sometimes one or two, sometimes it's like more than that, so on and so forth. But the objective is really to get to the end game, whereby if you unlock enough, I believe it's also 65, I can't remember. Then you can unlock the last one, which is the last note is usually the most powerful one, or build defining. Now you could initially do something like this, like reduce a base cooldown of all ultimate by 15%, and it is an option that you can pick initially when your cooldown reduction is not high enough, for example. Then I will advise you to pick this one first, because this is the one that gets you get your ultimates to have the like uptime 100% of time, or near 100% of time, depending on your gearing kind of like progress. But yeah, I mean that would be the first thing that I would advise you. Ultimate Affinity is the first skill that I would advise you to pick. But once your cooldown reduction becomes so good that you don't need to worry about uptime of the ultimate, then you can pick something like a Holy Affinity. That means that class mastery also increase the holy damage with each point spent at the same rate as other stats. So all these are class mastery, for example. So that is a good thing about it. Now you can only have one ultimate affinity. So if you pick this one as an ultimate affinity, the other three you can't have that as an option. So just something to note, no big deal, but it's just something to note there. Now my advice to you is always start with your class mastery first, because with the class your specific tree, Redemption, Vengeance, or whatever you play, other like Warden classes and so on, always start with the mastery that's relevant to your build first, because a lot of those points are very, very much like build defining. You can make your character really, really good just by investing enough to get to that one point here. So that is the first kind of like advice that I would kind of like share my experience with you, is start with your build mastery first. So once you get that, then you can look about your class mastery 1 and 2 and 3. Now these are pretty generic kind of like stats, and you could kind of pick like between health and mana. You can have one of them, or you can have, like, for example, between mana and this is like a damage. So you can pick between mana and damage. You can pick one of them, and you can also pick between like mana and thorn. So what happened is that these three and mana. So basically you can have like health, damage, and thorns and mana as your options as this first tier. And the game is really, really nicely kind of like designed. You cannot pick like damage on everything, but as you pick something like one option that you have like mana, then the mana become like not available. Like, for example, if you swap this thing out to say mana, then this one will give you an option to have a thorn, right? So as you can see. But if I have this one back to thorn, then this one will have a mana. So what essentially it means is that within the 3 mastery 1, 2, and 3, you have option of health, damage, thorn, and mana. But you can only pick 3 out of all. Now, why I keep talking about this one is that unlike the rest of the stats, these 3 are the one that has no limit to it. You can put in as many points as you can, collect the XP and mastery. So it's like infinite. You can have as much damage as you increase or what. So that's one. But other places like this one here, like 10/10, it has a rank to it. So you can't have more than 10 rank onto that. There's a limit. There's an upper limit to it. Like this is one on 1. It's 1 on 10. So there's a lot of them has a limit. All of them has a limit to it. But these are the 3 nodes that has no limit to it. That means to say you could put as many points as you can. Very much like Diablo 3, the primary skill that you put, or the health or whatnot. You can put as many points as you can to scale the things up indefinitely. That's up to you. Now, but initially, my advice to you is that get 65 across all of this first. Why? Because you want to get the one node there. This node usually is also aligned with your build kind of setup as well. Because for me, I use sword skill, I use shield skill, and my hammer does the magic skill. So I want to just do a 15% across all, because I do skill that has 3 different power, and it's kind of good to handle hybrid that way. Or if you say that, well, you know, I'm very vested into shield, then you put 25% on shield, but you don't have any benefit to your magic or sword, or vice versa. You want to put like all out on sword or all out on the magic. So it's up to you. You could do that, and that is also pretty smart in this game that handle hybrid, because if you look at many games, they don't really handle hybrid well. I think Marvel Heroes does it pretty decent, but many other games don't really do hybrid well, and this game does hybrid really well. There are gear that support hybrid as well. So so this is the 65 that you want to put in here first, or the 65, until you unlock this guy here. Now thereafter, what you should do, well, there are a couple of options here. You could pick something that you find useful because the other 3 builds can be something that you could think about. In the end, I picked something that is more on the fire skill, because I find that the fire nodes are more relevant to my build, even I'm not using fire, and also fire become a synergy that I can play around with. Let me elaborate a little bit more on that one. So after you've done the holy and make your Templar really awesome as a Holy Templar, then after that you put in your class mastery until you have like, wow, you know, you are doing quite a lot of like good damage and good defense and so on and so forth, and you say, yeah, I'm kind of like nice, I'm happy with the with the way that's been set up. And then after that you say, well, you know, what about I branch out a little bit, do a little bit of fire skill, and that's exactly what I've done. So I look into things like effect duration. This is a very, very generic kind of thing. You don't have to be a fire, you know, Templar to benefit from effect duration. I mean, you can anyone can have that, or you can have like fire damage or companion damage or thorn again, and or companion health. So again, there are options there to make your Templar kind of interesting. But what is interesting for me is this one, is a flare. So in this particular example, what I've done is that I augmented my tree such a way that I will trigger flare, and flare will allow my character to move quite fast. So this is plus 30%, and then with my flare, which is somewhere here, alright, so this is flare. So using offensive fire skill has 50% chance to trigger flare, increasing my movement speed by 60% for 11 seconds. Again, all the duration, you know, effect duration kind of kicks in as well. So okay, that's interesting, because I can move a lot faster if I do a bit of flare as a passive. But how do I trigger flare? Now that is an interesting point, because you can either build your character to do a hybrid like Ember, like I have an Ember skill there. But then the thing is that if you want to build your Templar to be a Holy Templar, you really want to gear everything to Holy. It doesn't make sense for you to gear like, you know, Holy and Fire, although I said that this game does support hybrid, but not necessarily you have to do it that way. So what I've done is that, you know, I've used scroll. So I think I've got another video to show you how to use other classes or other kind of like power to make yourself to augment to your own skill set. So with the skill set, I mean, you can only have like just like Diablo 3, you have 4 power that you can use, and you have left and right button, and that's all. These are all the active power you have. But there's also a potion kind of like things to it as well. You can have potion, or you can have something called the relics to cast spell that is not your class, but it's a permanent kind of thing. And now I've got another video to show you how to transmute scroll into relics. So you could actually have power that you don't normally access to, and to use as your character. So I have something called the Wall of Fire, and Wall of Fire is pretty cool because the cooldown is very short. The cooldown is very short. So whenever I pop this guy, now it's flare, you see? So my character suddenly move very fast because I have flare. And I can potentially just refresh flare if I'm lucky enough. I can just keep refreshing because it's just so many of them. So I use fire skill not really as a damage layer, but it really just give me the kind of mobility that is really, really nice, right? Compared to if without flare, I'll show you in just a bit, the character move quite slowly, and suddenly you see the character move quite slowly without flare. But once you got flare, you see, it go a lot faster. So now I kind of change my build. So mastery enable me to do that better, Now I could do it without mastery as well, but then without the mastery, the percentage is not quite there. So that's one good example whereby you can use mastery to make your build better. And as I go, is that I can do a bit of skill to it, and damage stagger is also very nice skill, by the way. They kind of make your character a little bit stronger when you stagger the damage. But I can do another video on that. But what I mean is that there are a lot of nooks that. There are a lot of nooks that is relevant to your build, and there are nooks that whereby you can branch out and do a little bit interesting for your build. Now, but there are also some nooks that are totally useless. Like you put things to it, it just doesn't do anything because you are not the like for example, increase the tick rate of Holy Fire by 30% of the attack speed doesn't make anything to me because I don't do Holy Fire. And in a way that become like a bit of how should I say? You feel that it's a bit of waste. I think if you recall Omega system is the same thing as well. Sometimes you just need to put one pawn to unlock another stage whereby you do something interesting. But that one pawn that you put is a waste. So it do have that little bit of wastage to it. But the good thing about this is that you can actually have the bonus over here. Some of them make sense, some of them not. But yeah, I mean there are things that you could actually think about, how to make your character stronger by putting points to it that increase your overall mastery for each one of them, and so on and so forth. Right. So now, so that would be probably you will focus on one other kind of stats. And my advice to you actually is to look at the first tier as well, because each three other trees, the first node is usually quite interesting, like crit hit damage, like attack speed, like effect duration. These are very, very generic stuff that you can pick up. So I would just unlock the first tier first, put all 20 points, and after that I explore what kind of build I want. I want to do a fire build, and after that I may say, okay, interesting, I like this node here because it does 25% to all damage elements, and I want to unlock all the way until I get there because it gives me 25% on my holy damage, for example, and that's relevant to me. So I do that, and some of them I will just unlock until a point whereby, yeah, I think 5% evasion is good, but look, anything beyond that, I don't really use it. It doesn't benefit me at all. I'm not building my character to all these things. So what it means is that at some point I could stop. I say, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to put in any more points in this one. I get the notes I need. Like this one, I need this note. This one, I do need this note, and then that's good enough for me. So that is my advice to you. And the reason why I research all the way to the end for fire, because I do quite a fair bit of fire. Well, I layer fire damage on two ways. One is the wall of fire that you see here. That does give burn. The other one is that I got Ember Shield as well. Ember Shield is like a bubble whereby it does fire damage to any nearby foe. So I don't mind buffing the fire with just 1 point. But normally then you don't want to waste any point. Then you can say I don't need that. But for me it's fine. So okay. So just to recap, I know it's a pretty long video, but I just want to recap on the mastery, how to do this mastery. First, invest 65 points or whatever point here until you unlock all the way to the last one, and use the ultimate cooldown, ultimate affinity as your end point. So that's your first step. Do that. Second step is that do 65 on each one of those mastery 1, 2, and 3, or 65 of them, and after that unlock the last point that'll be relevant to the build that you have. Stop there. You're done. And after that, third step is to unlock the first tier of all of these guys, right? All the rest of the build there. The first tier is what you should unlock, and it should be generic to your build as well. Other classes I haven't seen, but I would imagine they are the same. So if it is relevant to you, unlock those first. Don't worry about getting too deep into any of these, because you are not, unless you are really heavily hybrid, there's no point. So get the first set of 20 on each one of the other build, and after that you do a little bit of research, like which one does more benefit to you compared to others. Like for example, the holy, the redemption, I do expulsion as well, and this one does buff the expulsion. So think about which of the trees benefits you the most, and then explore that. But don't be hesitate to stop investing point. Like once you get to a point whereby I don't think any other point it's going to help me anyway, I'm going to waste my point, I don't want to do that, stop. That is the point to stop. I think every tree will have the point whereby you want to stop, and after that you'll just move on to further buff any other note that you feel that you could to get a better kind of healing or whatever. You can do whatever you want to do with it. But ultimately, what you need to do is to make sure that this one of these 3 nooks, you pick one that you want to expand to the end game so that can infinitely increase your power in one way or the other. Alright, so now that is all from the mastery point. It's getting a little bit longer than I thought, but I think it's something that you guys should take a look at, explore, especially when you're not familiar with this game and sort of wondering what to do with the mastery point and so on and so forth. I hope I've helped somehow. Talk to you again soon. Goodbye.